Propati, again the designer of Dungeon Hack, the dice game, and this is another one of my instructional videos. And what I'm going to cover in this video today is the poison disease cards, how they come into play, how you resolve them, how they affect the party during play. So first let me talk about all the poison and disease cards. Since there are 6 characters altogether, even though you only play with 4, I want to show you all 6. The fighter, cleric, thief, and wizard. These are the poison disease cards. These are your normal cards that you would play with, the initial characters. And you'll notice that on each card they have a healing hand. So you can read the card, place this card to the left of the game board. Damage is against the following afflicted character. So this applies to this character type, which is a fighter, and it says there, and it says poison disease damage, 1 damage per, and it should be round until cured. So if you have a situation where could be a trap, could be a type of monster that affects a party, poison disease cards will be applied. Now, real quick, these are the 2 new characters, the barbarian and the paladin. And one of the nice things to remember about the paladin is the paladin is immune to disease. So if you have creatures that when they attack and cause damage and they roll and cause disease, if the paladin is picked for disease, it's ignored and you just re-roll again to pick a random character. So just remember that. They are affected by poison, but paladins are immune to disease. Okay, so those are the barbarian and paladin, and they work beyond that the same. So how this would work with poison and disease, these cards would be off to the side. And let's say we had, during play, a trap. Let's see, we'll have poison gas. So you're in a tile room, you have a trap, and you draw poison gas. So you're playing and you maybe get 1 hood, the next round you roll, you don't get anything, and it moves off the board. So now this affects the party. And the way it's going to affect the party is a frontline character is poisoned. That's in this case with the poison gas. So what you would do is you would roll your 4-sided dice and you would apply 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2. You'd go, okay, well the fighter is going to be poisoned. So you would immediately grab the fighter poison card and you would place it up here in the upper left corner. Now, just like a card or a trap that has an asterisk, this poison disease card stays out until it's resolved. It will continue to give damage to that character until it's resolved. So after you play, put this trap back. After you play a round, that when the disease cards come out, it doesn't immediately cause damage. So when that round finishes, you'll roll again, and if you roll a hand symbol, place it on there, it resolves the card. And you would put this in the regroup, and this would go in the poison discard. If during the round, the round after it's applied, you do not roll a heal hand, the fighter takes 1 point of damage. Round ends, you don't resolve it again, fighter takes another point of damage. This character will continue to take a point of damage per round unless you can play a healing hand on that card to resolve it. If you have a creature that does poison or disease and it hits the party, and I'll cover this, but as an example, if it happens to get the fighter again, basically you're not going to re-roll for another character. Even though this guy was poisoned, now he's diseased, it's still just this one card and it's still 1 point of damage. So it's not going to be 1 for poison and 1 for disease. It just so happens that he ended up getting hit again, but he's already got a poison out. So they can only max poison and or disease 1 point of damage per turn or per round. So that's if a trap affects a party. Now if you have a monster, now certain monsters such as dire rats, they can cause disease. And the way this works is you have a dire rat that's in position and it attacks. Whether it wins initiative or not, that doesn't matter. If it rolls and causes damage, right, before it's killed, if you roll, again, a 1 or a 2 on a d6, it causes disease. And when that happens, again, you roll not just for the frontline party, the numbers apply to who it's going to be affected. So just like in combat, if there's 2 or less, it affects the frontline party. If there's more than 2 monsters attacking, you will roll a 4-sided dice, and any of the 4 characters can be hit with disease. So as the example goes, the dire rat does damage. Even if it doesn't do damage, if it gets to attack, right, and just does 1 point of damage, right, it has to at least do damage. Then you roll a d6, it rolls a 1, and you're going to roll to see who's poisoned. If this was the only card out there, then you would do like you normally do. You'd have 1, 2, 3, or 4, and it would affect the frontline party. So in this case, a 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So the cleric would be affected by disease, and you'd put your cleric card out there. Now, if you haven't killed this rat, right, and this card's still out there, if he hits again and rolls another 1 or 2, you'll roll again. And if it hits the cleric, so be it, that's fine. But if it hits a fighter, now you've got a fighter and a cleric that have been diseased, right? If there was, let's say there was 2, and now 3 monsters out, and this dire rat caused damage. Now you roll again and it rolls a 1. So you roll a d4, and then you go 1, let's see, it was a 4, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what this 1 is for. It's the start of a d4. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you have the wizard that's been diseased. And you end up killing this guy and bring him down, and you haven't done anything to the rat, so he rolls again, and this time he rolls a 2. So you get a 2. So now you roll, there's only 2, right? But there was initially 3 during the full turn. It's not based on how many monsters are left when you deal with the front line. It's how many monsters started the turn. So if the dungeon tile said there were 3 monsters, throughout that whole turn, it's the effect on the party as if there were 3 monsters. So even though you got this guy and you got the last guy and this is the guy that's left and he's right here and he rolls a 1, it still affects the entire party because there was 3 initial attackers. So this time you would roll a 4-sided dice, and let's say it was a 3, you'd go 1, 2, 3. And now the thief is affected by poison and disease. So a disease card gets played out. So now you have to apply a healing hand here and here to resolve both these, or the thief takes damage and the mage takes damage, 1 point per round. These can be devastating if you don't roll healing. And the nice thing about the new cleric card is you can swap a mace and turn it into a healing hand and resolve the card. So this is the new character mace card. So that's something to remember, is applying damage and then rolling to see what a special attack is, whether it's disease, because here's another creature, a ghast, that can cause disease. If he attacks and rolls a 1 or 2, again, you roll to see who's diseased. It can keep rolling as long as you don't kill it and he keeps rolling a 1 or 2. You can keep affecting the entire party. So always remember that the number of who's going to be affected is always based on the initial number of monsters that attacked. So if you had a 3 on the dungeon tile, and that's what attacked in the beginning, it doesn't matter if in the very first round you killed 2 of them right off the bat and there's only 1 creature left. If that creature has the ability to poison or cause disease, you will roll a 4-sided dice and affect the whole group. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just remember that. If it starts off with 2 or less, the frontline party will be the only ones affected, and that will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So be aware of who is in the front and who can be affected, because you can have your paladin up here and creatures that cause disease are not going to affect him. It will only affect. But also remember too, if just because you have the paladin up here, if you roll for the paladin, you basically are going to be an automatic hit on the fighter, because you're going to keep rolling until you get the fighter if it affects the frontline party. Disease will never affect the paladin, so the only one that's left in the front line is the fighter or barbarian. And basically, if you roll the paladin, the fighter's the one. Well, let me take that back. In the case of disease, poison is different, but in case of disease, I'm sorry, if you pick the paladin and the rat picks the paladin and rolls a 3, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, that's it. You don't have to roll the fight of the baron, because it didn't, just because you picked him and it didn't affect him, it still hit him. So let me make that distinction, that correction. If it's the paladin and if it's a creature that does disease and he gets picked, do not roll again for the fighter or for the barbarian. It hit him, but he just happened to have no effect on it, so you wouldn't be drawing a card for him. If it was poison, yes you would. So that is something I want to make very clear. It's not a re-roll, it just so happens that he's not affected by it. So no card is drawn, and then you continue on with the next damage. So that's how poison and disease functions in the game. It's going to affect the party members. The cards will always be placed up here. They will continue round after round, causing damage round after round, 1 point, until they're resolved. They can be given by traps, or they can be given by monsters. So it's very important that when you're fighting monsters that you look at what their special abilities are. Again, special ability, disease, a 1 or 2 on a d6 causes disease. Keep that in mind, because you have these creatures that can do that. Ghast, disease. And there's spiders in there that cause poison. So I hope that explains a little bit about disease and poison and how it can come about and how it can affect the party and how you resolve it. So that's disease. Thanks for watching. If you had any questions, if I wasn't very clear on that, go ahead and put it in the comments or suggestions below. Thanks for watching.